It's cold here, and soon we're going to have rain out on the West Coast in a few days, so maybe that'll help with the fires a little bit. But down throughout the Southeast, I understand. I'm cutting into Janice Dean's time, but I understand it's going to rain all weekend.
In the Southeast? You know what we're getting today? For
what?
the first time this year
snow.
or this season? Snow. We're supposed to get a little bit of snow today.
Some folks have already gotten that in the northern plains, right through the Midwest, also down south. So a lot going on. Speaking of down south, James Mattis, our Secretary of Defense, was down on our southern border yesterday, addressing some of the troops who are helping augment the work of the Border Patrol. There he is, as you can see right there, with Kristen Nielsen down in Texas. He told the soldiers to put the mission was to put obstacles in the way of the caravan, and he met some of the 5,600 troops that are supporting our Border Patrol.
Anybody who thinks this is a big show and a big stunt, I don't think you listened to General Mattis yesterday. Let's take a listen.
There's all sorts of stuff in the news and that sort of thing. You just concentrate on what your company commander, your battalion commander tells you. And when the secretary decided that her Border Patrol needed help, she came to us. Not because of me. Look, I had to rent a suit to come down here. No, because of you. Because what you are every day. In the Army, you don't care if you're male or female. We don't care where you go to church or if you go to church or anything like that. We just care when there's trouble out there, will you keep the faith? Will you ride for the brand? When trouble looms, you go toward the trouble to help your buddies.
What an amazing man. He did that little pep talk saying, just do your job. Don't listen to all the noise. Don't listen to the folks that are on, in New York and in Hollywood and doing these news reports, because you guys are the ones that are out here on the border. You're doing your jobs. He said, this is legal. It's justified. It's necessary. These troops, they're not getting combat pay. They're living in tents down there. They're eating the MREs. But then you have other people who don't agree that they should be there, like Jeff Flake, like you said, he's saying this is a stunt. It should be handled by civilians.
He will say anything to make the president look bad on his way out. He went back to General Mattis, who's a historian. He said, listen, President Wilson did this. We did this 100 years ago, and back in 1916. We've always done this. When times are trouble, you put your troops on the border. We're not going to be arresting people. We're going to be supporting the Border Patrol, allowing the Border Patrol to do what they can do.
So you had the Secretary of Defense in Texas. And of course, yesterday on our program, we told you about how hundreds of migrants are arriving in the Tijuana area. As of last night, close to 800 have arrived. And here's the problem for Tijuana. They are set up so that the migrants who are waiting to apply for asylum or try to figure out what their next option is. According to the New York Times, some are thinking about sneaking across the border illegally. If they get caught, they'll immediately be deported, according to what the president has said. These are some of the images from Wednesday where they're looking toward the United States.
Look at that video. You can see the concertina wire, which is that razor wire. It forms those large coils like a concertina, like an accordion.
Yeah.
It's that barbed wire that they put at the top so that the migrant workers can't get over the wall or can't even just sit up there taunting the Border Patrol agents.
Well, here's the problem for Tijuana. They're camped out essentially in Tijuana. And according to the New York Times, Tijuana is set up to handle scores of people in the shelters, not hundreds and not thousands. And they're looking at thousands of people. And the worry is, with gang trouble, all sorts of violence as a potential, all these people are going to Tijuana, and now Tijuana's going, what are we going to do with them? They've asked the Mexican government, could you give us $4 million to help support these people for 2 months? Haven't heard back from the Mexican government yet.
General Boykin was on yesterday. He pointed out there's so many veterans in need. He said so many that need quality tests. There's people in America that are in desperate needs. And he said, you got to keep that in mind.
Respect the law.
You got to respect the law. You have to understand what's going on at the border. You also have to understand that there are people here in dire need that are paying tax dollars for American services. $4 million check that could be going for Americans.
Yeah, he said, as a grandfather of 6, how do I, as a grandfather, teach my grandchildren to respect our laws, to respect our law enforcement, when we have a spectacle like this of people taunting our law enforcement on the border and flaunting the fact that they are breaking our laws?
All right. Meanwhile, I will be Speaker. Who was I just impersonating?
I think it was Nancy Pelosi after a night of drinking.
It was Nancy Pelosi. I don't know about the drinking part.
With the male voice?
Yeah. I was saying.
Here's Here's a problem for the former speaker. There's a group of House Democrats who say they have enough votes to block her from getting the job. There's a list circulating with 17 names on it, members of Congress, pledging to vote against her when they do vote for the next speaker on January 3rd, and apparently there are 5 more. She needs 218 people to go ahead and say, yep, we want her. They have 229. That means if she loses, what, 22? She would be in trouble.
Well, Congressman Seth Moulton, he says no one else has come out because they don't want to alienate the Pelosi supporters. And he said once it's clear that they have enough votes to block her from becoming speaker, then someone will step up to the plate.
Seth Moulton is somebody who wants to compromise and get things done.
Democrat from Massachusetts.
Yeah, Kathleen Rice also puts herself in that category, too. She's against Nancy Pelosi, a so-called Never Nancy movement. I find this pretty amazing. In a time in which Nancy Pelosi, whether you love her or hate her, she has helped deliver the House and keep everything together. She has formulated resistance. If you talk about effectiveness, you might say she's effective. The guy that gets renewed all the time is Senator Schumer. What did he do? All he did is rant and rave and not cut deals with the president, and he gets a red carpet treatment right back to leadership.
Chuck Schumer is going to keep his job. Mitch McConnell is going to keep his job. Steve Scalise was selected yesterday as the House Minority Whip. Kevin McCarthy beat Jim Jordan substantially, beat him 159 to 43 for the House Minority Leader. And Mr. Scalise was actually talking yesterday, and he says he was talking about Nancy Pelosi. But keep in mind, Republicans like the idea of Nancy Pelosi as a speaker because they have been very effective in demonizing her in these close House races where there are a lot of moderates. And if they put her up and use her as a piñata, it's been very helpful.
Well, in that way, let's listen to Steve Scalise. He thinks Pelosi deserves it, kind of.
I think they deserve Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, but I sure don't want to see it. I went through 2.5 years of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, and I came in not long after Kevin, and she was Speaker, and you saw what she did to the country. I mean, they rammed through Obamacare with the famous, you got to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
So anyway, if there is a rival, and Mr. Ryan from Ohio we've had on, he's run against her in the past. You got to figure he would like to probably try that again. Nobody has come forward and said, okay, if you don't vote for her, vote for me at this point.
They have a few days to get their list in order and get that letter out because they're voting on November 28th.
But in this era of #MeToo, is it time to oust, which would be a historic revisiting of a female speaker? Is this the time for Democrats to have that type of optic and go to a Seth Moulton or a Tim Ryan?
On the Republican side, a woman by the name of Liz Cheney was selected as the House Republican Conference Chair.
At her dad's position.
Number 3 Republican spot in the House, and she will be joining us later today.
That's right.
Speaking of later today is deadline day down in Florida, 3 o'clock this afternoon.
We've heard this before.
Counties have just a number of hours to finish recounts as the heated battle over the U.S. Senate seat is stirring even more controversy.
We shouldn't call this election day. Let's call it election season. Some counties making progress while issues are piling up for others.
Griff Jenkins is in the thick of it all. He's in Broward County. Good morning to you, Griff. I understand they were cheering last night because they were able to go home and get some sleep knowing they didn't have many more votes to count this morning.
That's right, Ainsley. Good morning, guys. Look behind me. The machines have stopped. But look at this video. The staffers here celebrating because they're almost done. Only about 80-plus ballots that were damaged and have to be duplicated remain. They'll do that this morning, and they're preparing now to pretty much move on to an anticipated hand recount that'll involve about 30,000 over and under votes. But up in Palm Beach County, they're not going to make it. Susan Booker, the elections supervisor up there, was in, quote, prayer mode. And meanwhile, a lawsuit's playing out today on whether or not she may get an extension. No question yet on how that may or may not affect the rest of the entire state. We'll find out. More questions remain. But problems continuing to plague Broward County. The election supervisor here, Brenda Snipes. Yesterday, the Florida Secretary of State sent a letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office about altered cure affidavits for vote-by-mail ballots in 4 counties. Now, they're supposed to be turned in the day before the election, but the altered one said they could be turned in 2 days after. That, of course, causing problems. Snipes says she caught them. She did not accept those ballots, but she didn't tell the Secretary of State, and I pressed her on it. Listen.
But since it's a crime to alter anything like this, shouldn't you still have reported it to Secretary of State?
Even if they weren't successful?
Yes, that's a good point.
So they're going to get the recount done here in Broward, but these problems still remain. I'm going to try and talk with Ms. Snipes a little later today on camera. We'll find out if that happens, guys.
All right, Griff, thank you very much. The supervisor in Palm Beach County says she is in prayer mode. She's praying that they're able to get at least one of the big recounts done by 3 this afternoon.
And Jeb Bush came out and said, hey, you know what, Senator Nelson, stop with the lawsuits. You're demeaning your entire career by the way you seem to be going out.
All right, we'll keep you posted on that. In the meantime, 6:11 here in New York City, and Jillian joins us with a story from California.
That's right. Good morning. So we do begin with this Fox News alert, and now at least 59 people are confirmed dead as wildfires burn across California. The Sierra Fire, fueled by wind, scorching nearly 150 acres east of Los Angeles. And to the north, brand new drone video shows the devastation caused by the Camp Fire. Look at that, 8,800 homes completely destroyed in the town of Paradise. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke touring the devastation with California Governor Jerry Brown. He says it's the worst he's ever seen. Michael Avenatti, the famed attorney for Stormy Daniels, denying domestic violence allegations.
I have never struck a woman. I never will strike a woman. I am looking forward to a full investigation, at which point I am confident that I will be fully exonerated.
Avenatti posted bail last night. He was arrested after an alleged confrontation at his Los Angeles apartment with an unidentified woman. The CMA Awards rocking Nashville. Hosts Brad Paisley and Carrie Underwood praised for leaving politics out of the show.
Nobody wake Chris Stapleton.
Stapleton was too busy accepting the most awards of the night, including Vocalist of the Year. But Keith Urban pulled off the night's biggest surprise, taking home Entertainer of the Year. So it looked like fun had by all.
Cried, talked to his, said to his wife, I love you so much.
Great.
It's nice that there were no politics
kids.
in that.
Yes.
I admire that that's his outfit for winning Entertainer of the Year, a stretched out T-shirt. I used to get yelled at when I left the house with stuff like that.
You could see his tattoos. He wanted to show his tattoos.
That's a good point.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much. Meanwhile, the media are buzzing over a possible White House shakeup involving some of the president's top staff. But are these changes to the cabinet and whatnot really that unusual? Our next guest has a history lesson for all of us.
All right, the mainstream media, in many cases, going crazy over staff changes at the West Wing, as new reports suggest that Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen and John Kelly, as Chief of Staff, could be on their way out. But when you take a look at the second years of the last 4 administrations, President Trump has made the same number of cabinet changes as President Clinton, and only 2 more than President Obama. So is the media overhyping the situation, or we just love the palace intrigue? Let's ask presidential historian Doug Weed. Doug, is the president getting too much scrutiny in this area?
Hi, Brian. Yeah, I remember when I went to work on White House senior staff back in 1989, before you were born. And at the time, they told me the average length of stay on White House senior staff was 1.5 years. Reagan had 4 chiefs of staff. So did Bill Clinton. Barack Obama had 5. George W. Bush had 5 secretaries of the Treasury. And Jimmy Carter, who was only in office for 4 years, had 6 acting secretaries of state. This is very common. You change the staff depending on what the new things need to be accomplished in the White House, which is constantly changing.
It's brought up that of the 8 that have left, 6 cabinet officials, 6 have resigned, but 2 were promoted, Kelly and Pompeo. They were just moved around, one from CIA to Secretary of State, and Kelly was Homeland and now is Chief of Staff. It doesn't show chaos, but to tell you the truth, Doug, it's logical to think a businessman who's never had political office, who wasn't a Washington insider, would have to rotate people out in order to get the people he wanted. He had to figure out who likes him and who can do the job. And sadly, there was a big difference.
That's absolutely right. And make no mistake, it's not necessarily that the person leaving did a bad job at all. It's because there's new things he wants to accomplish and new people with skills who have them to do. I will say this, Melania Trump, very healthy, her comments and speaking up for herself. You may know all about the world and be the smartest person on earth about the world. If you're not smart enough to figure out you need to treat the president's wife and her staff staff, the president's daughter and son-in-law and their staff with respect. You're not smart enough to work in the White House. So I was very impressed with Melania Trump.
She pushed out John Bolton's deputy because of the way she treated her staff on the Africa trip and the way she's treated others. Says she's not worthy of the White House. The next day she's gone. And for those people who don't think Melania has the president's back, you have never been around those two. This is really about the president and getting loyalty around him. And she's got great instincts. Good point, Doug. Appreciate your perspective.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead. One top Democrat says people in Trump country are telling him this.
They're saying, while we like Trump, there's some people saying we like him, we like what he's doing, we want the Congress to make him accountable.
Wow, former Congressman Jason Chaffetz here to react to Elijah Cummings' comments. Plus,
President Pence and the Russian President Vladimir Putin shaking hands at an Asian summit in Singapore. The world leaders crossing paths before the vice president heads to Papua New Guinea for a different Asia-Pacific conference. Pence is standing in for President Trump. And a live look at the UK Parliament, where Prime Minister Theresa May is making her case for a new Brexit plan. May claims support for the draft is of national interest. Two Brexit officials calling it quits today over the deal, though. They're among several critics against the plans that will allow Britain to depart from the EU. Steve, down to you.
All right. Thanks, Ainsley. More ballot drama brewing in the Sunshine State. The Florida State Department asking federal prosecutors to look into allegations. The Democrats sent out faulty mail-in ballots to voters in 4 different Florida counties. The forms incorrectly stating that voters could return them 3 days after the election, despite the fact that they were actually due the day before on November the 5th. Whoops. Here to react, Katherine Harris, former Florida Secretary of State during the 2000 election recount. She certified that George Bush had won the vote in Florida. Nice to have you.
So nice to be here again. Thank you.
You bet. So what's going on in Florida? It looks like it's deja vu all over again.
Exactly. Rodney Dangerfield. Well, this is always going to happen. We actually passed election laws that are the model for the nation after election 2000. So this is not a matter of laws that will work. It's a matter of people exercising those laws with integrity.
A lot of criticism of Brenda Snipes, the supervisor in Broward County. What do you make of that?
Well, I think she has a history that wasn't a very positive one, and she is a supervisor of elections, which means she's a constitutional officer, and she's elected by the county. What's interesting is they have autonomy, and the only person who can remove them is the governor, not the Secretary of State.
Well, we've heard so much about Governor Scott now has a problem with what they're doing in that county. He has had the chance to get rid of her.
Well, obviously, I think it would be difficult for him to do so now since he's in the middle of it.
But given the fact that suddenly we're hearing these stories, well, she did this wrong at this time and that wrong, it calls into question the integrity of what's going on.
Well, the integrity of our laws is not a problem. It's the exercise of the rule of law. And the exercise of rule of law is supposed to prohibit the arbitrary use of power and focus on existing, well-defined laws. And if someone isn't doing that, then obviously there are consequences as well.
Do you think politics has come into play here?
I can't answer that. I'm not there on the ground.
Yeah.
But I can say that when I was Secretary of State, what we really focused on was trying to protect the law. It was our only safe harbor because you have to live with yourself the rest of your life.
Sure.
We protected Al Gore's legal rights. Everyone else was working on his political viability. And I think at the end, I always said the only safe harbor I had was rule of law.
There you go. As people are looking in and they're watching how some of these officials went ahead and executed the election, you know, the dates were wrong. They've got this signature match thing. A judge yesterday essentially said, okay, I'm going to give you 2 more days to figure this out. The machines don't work. And then we had one of the fellows who's in a very tight race, and he told us, you know, I went to bed, I was 5,000 ahead. I got up the next day, and suddenly they found tens of thousands of new ballots.
That's ridiculous. So what I think is important is that as long as they stay and follow the law, if you have a court change it, if you have a politician change it, if you arbitrarily change these laws, there are unintended consequences. The Florida Supreme Court refused to grant me a statewide recount right after the recount. Consequently, we had unequal protection under the law. And when it went to the Supreme Court, and we won because they only tried to focus on recounting the Democrat ballots. I'm very concerned about extending the time. Palm Beach said, when the Florida Supreme Court said you must certify on Sunday,
right.
and they wanted to extend the deadline, just an hour or two. And I wanted to be gracious, but they were very specific on when the deadline was over. If they start extending deadlines, those unintended consequences, Palm Beach didn't finish counting in an hour, 3 hours, 3 weeks. They never finished counting.
Well, now it looks as if they're going to be able to finish counting by 3 o'clock this afternoon in the one recount race, not in two of the outstanding.
Let me say one thing.
Yep.
People always say, what can we do to fix this? Florida is a purple state. We're always going to have close elections. We just have to have people elected that are going to follow the law.
All right, there you go. You would know. Katherine Harris, former Secretary of State for the great state of Florida. Katherine,
so nice to see you.
Thank you very much. All right. All right. Coming up, hundreds of troops working to fortify our southern border. But one of President Trump's biggest critics has this to say.
I think you can't call it anything but a stunt here.
Just good with it. And you're right. That shirt. What a stud.
Right. I mean, how can people, if I wore that, they go, get that off. Well, you can't go out like that. But he looks like the man.
That's what we all aspire to.
Right. To look cool, casual.
Not for now. Sticking with the tie.
He was showing off the tattoos. He had them, All right, so Jeff Flake, we saw Mattis down there at the border yesterday.
Yeah.
And he talked to the troops. He gave them a pep talk. He said, listen, don't listen to the media. Don't listen to the noise. Just do your job. And Jeff Flake was saying it's all a political stunt. Listen to this.
I think you can't call it anything but a stunt here. And it's unfortunate that they're going to be away from family during the holidays coming up, and we just don't know what really for. We don't know where the caravan, if it makes it north, is going to come. I think it could be handled by civilians that we have there in terms of Border Patrol and others. So I don't know what I could tell them other than you shouldn't be doing this.
Okay, well, he says it's a stunt.
Nah, look, I tell you what, if you're in the Border Patrol and you got the United States military in your back and helping you with communications and putting up other types of barriers and those types of things, you're feeling good about it. We have a surge of people coming north that have said they're going to come into this country potentially illegally. The president has the political guts to do the right thing and match that by making sure that we have the proper resources so we're not overrun at the border. I'm proud of the president. He's doing exactly the right thing. And what General Mattis told the troops is exactly right. Go out, do your job, and make sure that you have the backs of the Border Patrol. A lot of these Border Patrol agents, they have to go out by themselves. And it's intimidating. They're expected to, round up 20 people by themselves. I've seen them do it.
Sometimes in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. And so to have the military down there is the right call.
Right. Also, here's the quote from General Mattis. I don't think he's really somebody who's subjected to politics or hyperbole. He says, we've determined the mission is absolutely legal, and this was also reviewed by the Department of Justice lawyers. It's obviously a moral and ethical mission to support our Border Patrolmen. So we don't know. Listen, we're seeing the beginning of the caravan come in San Diego. They're in Texas. We don't know exactly where they're coming, but they look at McAllen as one of the most vulnerable areas.
Well, if you go back and look at what General Mattis said, he said, we don't do stunts. And I think he put that to bed and said, no, we just don't do stunts. If you go to the Eloy detention facility, as I have in Arizona, you're going to find that there are people represented from more than 100 countries. We don't know who these people are, and we can't let them come across the border. Right. It happens every day, but they're there to suppress it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your former job as a member of Congress. There's going to be an election on the Democrat side, figure out who's going to be their leader. Nancy Pelosi wants to be Speaker of the House. She says I will be Speaker, she said yesterday. But apparently at least 17 members of Congress on the Democrat side have put their names on a letter. And there are 5 others for a total of 23 different members of Congress. They are going to try to stop her. Will they be effective?
Well, they have so far. Look, make no mistake about it. If Nancy Pelosi had the votes today, they would be voting today on whether or not she was going to be the speaker. The week you come back is when you have the leadership elections. Right. And the Democrats have had to delay that because they're in a bit of chaos, because they're trying to just put in the old leadership. Nancy Pelosi has raised more money than anybody in the history of the United States Congress, the House or the Senate. And it's no mistake why she's at the top of the food chain. Follow the money. And that's why Nancy Pelosi thinks she's going to be the speaker, thinks she deserves to be the speaker. But there's a younger class that says, no, we want to have a change here.
A couple of things. The reason why maybe we don't hear anybody else is everyone's just as old. You got Clyburn, who's in his 70s. You have Steny Hoyer, who's in his 70s. There's no heir apparent. For example, when Kevin McCarthy had some turbulence, people reached to Paul Ryan coming off vice presidential run. Steve Scalise is waiting. Should McCarthy have faltered? Where is the next generation of leader? Are they, tell me the inside baseball story. Are they afraid to step forward because Ryan seemed to have paid the price for getting his 60 votes and challenging Pelosi?
Look, there have in decades in the United States Senate, there has been no challenge to any leadership race in decades. In the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi rules with an iron fist. She and Steny Hoyer, they despise each other. They hate each other. She's not willing to step aside and let him step up. Right. It is an undercurrent that is so prevalent there in the House. Anybody who's talking about how that works knows that there's this clash. But these younger people have got to get organized. But they don't dare turn off the money machine, which is Nancy Pelosi.
Which helps all of them. But if there is a challenger to her, the problem is they're going to wind up in the next Congress with a really lousy assignment. Because
that's what I'm saying.
Or no assignment.
Yeah, exactly.
No assignment. You can go sit on one committee in the back row and do nothing. Democrats do it very different than Republicans. Republicans have term limits. You can only be a chairman, for instance, for 6 years. Right. Democrats, it's all based on seniority. Who's been sitting there the longest?
All right, so let's take a look at what Elijah Cummings said yesterday about President Trump, what he's hearing when he goes out, I guess, to his people around the country. Yeah, and into Maryland.
Even in Trump country, if you look at the results of this election, they're saying, while we like Trump, this is some people saying we like him, we like what he's doing, we want the Congress to make him accountable. We want you to make him accountable. And that's what they have said to us. And they want government to work for them. And so we got to do both. We got to address their issues on a day-to-day basis, what they go through every day. And there's another thing that's happening. I want us to return to a culture of normalcy.
I think everyone wants that. What do you think about the comments he made?
There is a degree of accountability that has to be put in place. I believe in oversight, no matter who is the president. But you can't do what the Democrats are doing. That is, they have presupposed the conclusion. They have already told you what the results are going to be. Now they're going to go back and, hey, we got to get the tax returns to prove it, or we have to get this. That's not the way it works. I went 4 years looking at Hillary Clinton. We didn't start an investigation until the Inspector General provided us evidence that there was classified information in a non-classified setting. The Democrats, you look at Swalwell and these others and what they're saying, they have already told you the conclusion. Now they got to go try to find some evidence.
Right.
That is so fundamentally wrong.
And I just think we're going to talk about this later, but that bipartisan legislation on criminal justice reform.
Yes.
And both sides, when Van Jones is praising the president, that might be the template to cool down everything.
It's the best bipartisan work. It's something I worked on when I was in the Judiciary Committee, and hats off to both sides and the president for taking a tough stand. Yeah. I think it happened when Jeff Sessions left. There's no coincidence. The Attorney General leaves, and suddenly the president's now supportive of it, and I hope the Senate does garner the 60 votes it's needed. It's a great piece of legislation. Yes.
That would be great. All right.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
All right. Time now for some news, and Jillian joins us right over there.
That's right. Good morning. Hello, Jason. How are you? An American's death on a cruise ship is being investigated as a possible murder. Local news outlets in the Caribbean reporting the woman fell from the upper deck of the Princess cruise ship after struggling with a man who was seen choking her. Princess Cruises has confirmed her death. The ship is expected to return to Fort Lauderdale this weekend. A college basketball player is banned from campus after this nasty cheap shot. Watch it. That's Fitchburg State's K'Wan Platt elbowing a Nicholls State player in the face on the court in Massachusetts. That player, Nate Tenaglia, finished the game and is okay. Look at that again. Police are investigating. And guys, this story is crazy. So an alleged scam from the start. A couple and a homeless veteran accused of making up a viral, heartwarming story to cash in. That's according to NBC 10 in Philadelphia. The couple initially claimed the veteran spent his last $20 to pay for the woman's gas when she ran out in New Jersey. They then started a GoFundMe for him and raised more than $400,000. There will be an update on the case this afternoon. Boy, if that's true, that is something.
Latest information is they made it all up.
Allegedly. That's according to sources from NBC 10 Philadelphia, where, by the way, I worked for 8 years. So.
Wow. I'm not making this up. Janice Dean is out in the elements. Trying to make ends meet.
Is it cold here? Oh, hi. How are you guys? Hurry up. I don't have a lot of time. You know that there's a nor'easter coming, right? Where are you from?
Indiana.
What are your names?
Don.
Bill and?
I'm Don.
Do you know each other?
Nope.
You know each other now? Let's take a look at the maps real quick. You know, we have a nor'easter coming. Did you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the potential for a lot of ice, unfortunately, in Indiana, my friend. We have an ice storm warning in effect. All of this is coming up towards the Northeast, all right? So if you don't have to travel today, I'd advise against it. Here in the Northeast, across New York and northward, it comes this afternoon and overnight tonight. Want to say hi to anybody at home real quick? Hi, everybody at home. Okay, back to you, Steve.
Right. Tell them hello. Thanks, Janice. All right, yes.
I hear there's a nor'easter coming.
Right, I heard that too, from Don.
All right, Dr. Sebastian Gorka's coming up, and Michelle Malkin. They're going to join us live in the next hour.
And President Trump backing a bipartisan prison reform plan. Is this true? To give former inmates a second chance? Judge Napolitano says it is true. He's going to walk here and expand on that.
Hello, Judge.
A bit of a saunter.
It's hard to remember.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce my support for this bipartisan bill that will make our community safer and give former inmates a second chance at life after they have served their time. These members have reached a bipartisan agreement. Did I hear the word bipartisan?
President Trump ready to reach across the aisle backing prison reform to give ex-inmates a second chance.
Here to weigh in is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, I'm looking at your notes and heard what you just said. You've sentenced thousands of people for everything from jaywalking to murder, and a lot of times your hands are tied as a judge. Not with this.
Correct. In the old system, the law as it is today, in most states and in the federal system, it's a minimum mandatory sentence, meaning the judge has very little discretion. The judge is basically checking a box on a spreadsheet, adding and subtracting numbers, and the bottom line number tells you where the person should go to jail and how long they should go away. There is no greater obstacle to justice in sentencing than minimum mandatory sentences, and this gets rid of minimum mandatory sentences. You have, politically, it's a win-win situation. We'll talk about the politics in a minute, but the optics of sending someone to jail who does not belong there, whose crime was not violent, who deserves a second chance, and a judge being denied the power to do that.
Any examples?
Oh, God, I can remember a case where, as a joke, a kid sold a cop a plastic bag filled with soap powder, pretending it was cocaine. The cop thought it was cocaine. He thought he was making a big hit. It was just soap powder. The case came to me. I said, let's return the $50 and put this kid on probation for a year so it doesn't happen again. I was reversed by the appellate court because selling a lookalike drug in New Jersey requires 3 years in jail. And then the appellate court was reversed, and I had to resentence the kid. What a waste.
Now that the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, has dropped out of his job, he was against prison reform.
Jason Chaffetz just made a great point. Old line, traditional prosecutors like Jeff Sessions hate this.
And Bill Clinton.
Correct. They just want to send people.
So listen
they want to send people. They think it's too soft on people. But judges need the opportunity to evaluate individual defendants.
Just so you see what Democrats are saying, Van Jones, of all people, came out and praised the president. He says this. More importantly, dozens of groups representing formerly incarcerated people also support the bill. Ditto, many people, enforcement groups, people finally coming together to do the right thing. Character test for us progressives. How many will give Donald Trump any credit? I will.
Well, that is remarkable. The president was joking when he said bipartisan. But you talk about bipartisan. Van Jones, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Cory Booker. This is an unbelievable unification of both ends of the ideological spectrum to do the right thing. Couldn't happen under
It gives
Bill
people
Clinton.
a second chance.
It couldn't happen under Barack Obama. It probably wouldn't happen if Jeff Sessions were still Attorney General.
And it still has to pass the Senate. Let's see what happens. Judge, thank you very much.
Gives people a second chance and saves a lot of money.
Prison makes everybody worse, and a lot of them that are there don't belong there. That's the bottom line.
All right. Judge, thank you very much. Meanwhile, straight ahead, Democrats just won the House last Tuesday, as you know. So who is Nancy Pelosi giving credit to?
Thank you for saving America. Reverend Sharpton,
Thank you for saving America.
Oh, good. I owe you one.
It's going to say...
4/7 reporter Carly Shimkus. Hey, Carly.
Hey, good morning, guys. So a whole lot happened during the CMA Awards yesterday. It started off with that touching tribute honoring the lives lost last week. There were also some lighthearted moments, but like you said, not one single mention of politics, no mention of President Trump or Hillary Clinton. They kept it lighthearted the whole time. The show did manage to make news, though, when Carrie Underwood revealed a certain baby detail that fans were dying to know. Take a look.
Remember last time when I accidentally revealed the gender of your baby? Tonight, we're going to reveal something even more exciting. Who the father is. Johnny or June?
I'm not making the same mistake.
Keith and Nicole?
No.
Garth or Trisha?
No, it's a Willie.
Because it's a Willie, meaning she's having a little baby boy. So this will be her second baby boy. Yeah. Because shows are so political these days, the fact that they didn't mention politics was really noticeable.
No kidding.
Right? Yeah.
Well, speaking of politics, Ted Cruz was locked in a battle with Beto O'Rourke down in Texas. Ultimately, Ted Cruz won. They'll never
see each other again, right? No, there's millions of people in Texas.
Until
they ran into each other at the airport yesterday. Can you believe this? I mean, they are smiling
they still
there.
Put some people in between them, though.
Yeah,
didn't they?
but you know, in their heads, they're going, the one person I didn't want to see. But actually, there are some very sweet details to the story. One of the witnesses, I believe she's the one closest to Ted Cruz on the left-hand side, she tweeted about this, and she said that Beto O'Rourke walked right up to him, shook his hand, said congratulations on the win, and they actually had a conversation about politics and how both sides can work together.
Right. That was nice. And he keeps his congressional seat, right? I mean, Beto O'Rourke, is he still in Congress?
I'm
not sure.
Think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think it's state by state. And I don't think, but anyway.
We'll see if he's gearing up soon, because people say even though he lost, he almost won in Texas, which is amazing.
And exit question, what is the one word we're not supposed to use this year?
Apparently, it's toxic.
Stop using toxic.
Toxic is the Oxford English Dictionary's word of the year. There's a lot of political reasons for that as well.
I'm a Webster's guy anyway.
So. Dictionary.com for me.
Don't tell Britney Spears.
That's right. Oh, she's going to be raking in those royalties today.
One of her songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Shimkus, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Defense Secretary Mattis sending a strong message to our troops down on the border as the caravan's first wave arrives down at the border. You're going to hear from him next.
Plus, Congresswoman Liz Cheney. She's the number 3 now in the House. Michelle Malkin, she's going to be here. I believe she'll have an opinion on a thing or two. Dr. Sebastian Gorka is going to be here. It has a big announcement for his own career. Don't miss a minute. We're stop zooming out now. We can't zoom out.